Welcome to the 80/20 show presented by your host, Jason Yee. Hello, everyone. Welcome. This is the 80/20 show, and today I have I'm excited to have another guest on, and we've got Satoshi Takano, who is the father of Rocket Rio, who is a YouTube stick handling sensation. I believe he has over 120,000 views on YouTube. Is that right?
Yeah, that would be about it. And it's definitely continuing to grow, so that's awesome.
That is very cool. And we met. Well, I mean, how did you come across my stuff? You and I went out for lunch, and we had a great chat. I think it was about an hour. I wish it had been about 3, and so we'll see how long today's chat goes for. But how did you kind of come across my stuff, and what led you to want to meet up and chat? Because I feel like the answer to that is also kind of the answer to your approach in hockey. So I'm curious how that kind of came about.
Yeah, though, it's kind of interesting, Jason. The all the tools that are available now through social media and YouTube and it's so easy to just stumble across some topics out there that relative to the areas that I'm always thinking about for my son. And one of the things that I've always been curious about, how things like acceleration is being taught in ice hockey. And I was just searching one day, and I came across your content online. And kind of digging deeper, I thought, hey, where is this guy doing this stuff? And then it turns out that you're in Vancouver. So as a fellow Canadian, I think it's great to kind of see people on the YouTube platform talking about the different ways to improve your skating and your hockey skills. And one day I just said, hey, I think it's worthwhile to kind of dig deeper, and here we are, right? So well, I'm just really glad that we can use these tools to connect.
Totally, that's the whole thing, is connecting, and so it seems like when I met you, it seemed like right away you're a connector. And one of the things is with Rio having this exposure on YouTube, the connection. I see you've fired up Instagram. He's now fired up Instagram. So it seems like the impact of social media is like a planned part of what you're doing, whereas kind of seems like most parents right now are kind of like social media is evil, and what are they doing on those devices? But you're leveraging it. So like what had you thinking about that?
It's we're living in a great time right now, and where there is no boundary. Back in the days when we used to dial up to the internet, and we were limited to this number of that we can have access to. That was just the beginning, and one of my biggest kind of leaders that I look up to, especially in the social media space, are guys like Gary Vaynerchuk, who I've been following ever since he started. Mm-hmm. That he always talked about is just while everybody's waiting to figure out what social media is going to happen, you got to get in there. And so we're definitely living in a time where we have access to these tools, and I think that if you use the right way, and I really focus on that, is using it the right way, that you can really help to mm-hmm. and connected because of social media and YouTube and Instagram. That's it's just another one of those great opportunities, and so you definitely have to leverage as much as you can. Having said that, you definitely also have to think about being able to provide content that adds value to people's lives, and I think that's something that you, Jason, and the whole community need to embrace. Right. And so putting whether it be Rio or any other player onto these platforms, is a great opportunity. Having said that, there's also, there's a dark side to it as well, and I'm sure we can talk about that a little bit later as well. But yeah, definitely, yeah, absolutely. You want, it's not that I have a strategy. I just really enjoy providing content that adds value and lights up people's lives, right? And all these like-minded thinkers like yourself and everybody out there, whether it be Barber or anybody else that's out there. I think it's a great platform.
Oh, certainly. And like one of the interesting things that I've kind of I've for a while you kind of like buy into the whole like whatever new technology is coming up, someone is saying, "Oh, that, there's a watch out for that technology," or whatever. Like when Facebook came out, everyone talks about cyberbullying, or all the different, all the, like you said, the dark side of it. Or when people, smartphones have come out and everyone's saying, "Oh, you're going to be addicted to your smartphone." And yeah, like of course there's problems, but if you look back, I think it was like a Tim Ferriss podcast where he talked to David Hannemeyer Hansen, and he said that at one point people thought books, as the new technology, were gonna, ruin our eyes, and they were the devil, and now the iPad's the devil and social media is the devil. But it's like, the book was a tool, and of course you can, use it the wrong way, and social media is a tool, and it really just sounds like you're kind of on the positive, constructive side of it. And I guess like a question, like hockey has like this culture of kind of not being too open, like kind of modest, the whole Bobby R, you score, you put your head down, not showboaty. And personally, it's been kind of a struggle for me to kind of not fight through, but when you're socialized as a hockey player your whole life to kind of don't say too much, don't be showboaty, and then to do well in today's connected age, now you got to go on social media, and you have to provide content. You do have to have some showmanship and some flair. How has that side of the hockey, how have you found that to be in working this type of connection and exposure and that kind of thing?
Well, I think you bring up a good point there, because the game of hockey in and of itself is changing right in front of our eyes right now. And I was talking to a good friend of mine early last week, kind of talking about the fact that we're in what we call a transition phase within the sport, where the game is getting much, much faster. It's getting much more about skill, brute force, and having a bunch of meatheads that are going at each other's heads.
Right.
So having said that, the tools that are out there now are astronomically better than what we had access to even 10 years ago.
Right.
So I think what we, the collective of content creators with the specific niche around hockey, I mean, we're transforming the sport like every day. And the more we put content onto YouTube or Instagram or Facebook, we're helping the community. And I think that's the bigger purpose beyond just showcasing your kid.
Right.
I think we all have to kind of get over the fact that there's a bigger reason why we're doing this. And with what I'm doing with Rio, for example, is just one small tiny example of how for example, stick handling is getting so much better amongst the community, or that their skills are getting so much better because of the community. It's just going to level. I think that the future of hockey is what I'm more excited about as a kid goes, right? So phenomenal. I mean, we had a chance to meet with he's one of the top prospects, in minor midget right now, playing in Toronto. And we approached him, and as more of a guy that things can you do with it off the ice that's just as important as what you can do on the ice.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense, and it's kind of like, you're right. Like the when it comes to the stick handling, I see some like really phenomenal stick handlers, and this is an age that we just couldn't you couldn't get this level of I'm going to use the word mimicry, but I'm going to use it in like a very positive sense, because you and I both know that mirror neurons are one of the ways that we learn, is you watch someone who's an expert, and then you actually have neurons dedicated to you know impersonating that expert. So with the amount of let's just say when I was growing up, and I was 8 years old, I had one quote unquote hockey wizard to watch, right, play at my local rink, right? And now if I'm 8 years old, I go on my Instagram and I can watch every single stick handler who's good at hockey stick handle, right? And just I can hashtag stick handling, I can look at that on Instagram, and now I can just mimic and learn from every single top end stick handler out there. And I just think of what I would have done had I been 8, 9, 10 years old, just absolutely studying this video again and again and again to see what they did. And so yeah, it is kind of part of this interesting collective. And I see that you're I when I met with you, I was immediately impressed with how connected you were, and how on top of the trends, not these progressive ideologies you were, and I think that's really served your kid. And also, just to note to anyone watching, in talking with Rio, he's one of the most he's what, is he 13 now, is that right?
He's 12. He's 12.
He's still 12. Okay, so I met with him, and I thought I was talking to an 18-year-old. Right? Sometimes I'll talk to 18-year-olds, and I'll be like, "Hey, so like, what's your goal?" And they'll be like, I don't know." And you'll say, "What are you working on?" And they'll say, well, I don't know." And with Rio, he's like, "This is my goal," and I'm like, "Okay." And I'm like, What are you doing right now to work towards that?" And like I say, most players are like, "Yeah, I don't know, like I'm at practice." Rio's like,
That wasn't staged. Yeah, that wasn't staged at all. That's just him.
Yeah, but I can tell, right? Because I've dealt with the players whose parents have them kind of not, I don't know, I don't want to put this in a negative way, but I've dealt with the players, and I can tell when they're not there. It's when the player has a ton of skill, the player has been is very good at telling you what you want to hear. Their eyes are empty, and that's the look of a player who's been overly engineered, let's say. But Rio wants dialed in and serious, and I was really, really impressed with that. And like I said, I was like, "What are you doing for this?" He's like, "Well, I'm doing this, this, and this," and I'm like, "Okay." That's fantastic. So yeah, I mean, like, how did you do that with your kid? Like, was that on purpose? Was that like how he just developed?
Yeah. So one of my best coaches that I've had, in life and in hockey is a guy by the name of Mike Polino. Mike Polino is probably one of the most longest running head coach for the Metalurg team in the KHL. They're currently in the playoffs right now, and he's one of the things that he actually told me now, back when I was probably about 15, is he said that be a star on and off the ice. It back then it didn't resonate with me, to be honest, and I hope when Mike hears this, he's not going to laugh, but I mean, I just kept hearing, "Be a star on and off the ice, be a star on and off the ice." And right. As I grew older, and when I had my son, and as he was being developed, I exactly what that meant. And so, it's one of those things where if you're doing any type of goal setting, and this applies to any adult listening as well, right? Where you really have to set your goals in terms of what you want. And we've been doing this thing, and you can certainly Google it as well. We have this thing called a vision poster,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a concept that was introduced to me back in the, I guess, early 2000s by Tony Robbins.
Right.
And I have my own kind of vision board and that we've created, but board every year. And so
Very
we've been
cool.
doing this since he was 6 years old.
Wow.
And so we've been doing it every year, and you could certainly view it on my Facebook page. And we set goals every year, and it gotten to the point where a lot of the things that we put on his vision poster has been achieved, and it's not because he kept looking at it every day. Trust me, he's got other interests aside from looking at vision posters,
Mm-hmm.
but he views it, and he writes in it. He signs off to say, I'm gonna shoot for these goals. And sure enough, when we do the assessment at the end of the year, we do this on New Year's Eve, and yeah, I mean, it's achieved, right? And I think you kind of have to keep it interesting. You have to keep it fun. You have to do it differently, and yeah, that's why I think, when you're asking him these questions about goals, he's very clear on exactly what he wants, right? So
Well, I think that's like the key word there is clear, and just like a side note with vision boards, it's funny how often you like you throw out the vision board, you say what's on your vision board, and sometimes, like you said, you don't always pay attention to it, but then you revisit the vision board sometime later, and you kind of look on it, and you go, oh wow. I did all
isn't
these
that
things,
funny?
or I did 75% of these things, and I never even like really realized it, right? You just kind of set it and forget it almost. But that's the big word, is clear. And you know the one of the things is, and that's big, that something that Tony Robbins is big on. I'm big on that, especially when it comes to the if then statements for crafting a player identity in hockey sense. But coaches don't encourage clarity. Parents often don't encourage it because they don't want to state goals. It seems like bad to have goals. They want to just think, oh, like if my kid deserves it and does it, they'll just get something. But like the being clear and not being ashamed to say what you're after is really important for goal setting. And like, here we go, like we're seeing kind of proof that that clarity works is important. And like I say, a testament to what you're doing. When I talk to Rio, he's very, very clear on what he's doing, and same with a lot of my other players. Like, I know Thomas is watching right now. Just different players who I can tell when they already have their goals set, because if you're if they have their goals set and I ask them questions, they're very, very detailed and clear on what they're after, and they progress much further, much faster. Now, like, tell me, was the YouTube video, was that part of the vision board, or did that just happen organically?
Actually, that is part of the vision board, believe it or not.
Really? Wow.
One of the guy to work with, and we had an opportunity to meet last year in New York, and ever since we've always kind of kept in touch. And I said to Rio, I said, hey, wouldn't it be great to do a video together? I mean, it's one of the things where, kind of going back to what you were talking about, with the way that things have been in the past. We're as adults, we're all teachers.
Mm-hmm.
So as a parent and as a coach, you have to realize that you have to teach them skills. You have to teach them and skill meaning not just hockey skills, but also life skills.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you really have to. You have a really big responsibility growing up, right, and raising your kid. So, it doesn't necessarily mean my way is it, right? It's, you have to keep an open mind even as a parent, and you have to learn as much as your kid does.
Totally.
I think these are some of the important things that I've learned over the years. Is if I want to set an example for my kid to have an open mind and to try different things and to kind of push the boundaries every day, those are life skills. They're not just hockey skills.
Right.
So, whether it be the video that we did with Pavel Barber, um, something that we really focused and said, okay, well, what could we do that can add value to the audience, and whether that be other hockey players, or whether that be other parents or what have you. You kind of have to think very clear in terms of, okay, well, how do we match skills with some creativity, and that was kind of the genesis of the video on YouTube that really, I think, resonated with a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's as a result of that is, I mean, we're this is a funny story because we're big fans of guys like Casey Neistat and all these other video bloggers that are out there doing
Mm-hmm.
some really creative stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And when we were putting this video together, the concept, we said, okay, well, why don't we put the boosted board into this thing? And so we said, I don't think anybody's done a video with a electric skateboard on the ice and have somebody stick handling through it. So that was something that we came up with, and we executed it, and thank God nobody got hurt, i.e. me.
Right.
And that was so much fun to do. And what I also wanted to say is that you have to enjoy the process,
Right.
right? And so whether it be the creative juices that are flowing,
Mm-hmm.
or whether you're playing in season, and you may not have had a great game, or whatever the case may be. You have to keep it enjoyable. And as a parent, I think you have a responsibility and an obligation to make sure that your kid enjoys what they're doing.
Right.
And
Right.
and I think we can't forget about that. So that's something that I always try to keep in mind, keeping it fun, keeping it enjoyable. Whether if I'm on the ice training kids, I'm always trying to keep it enjoyable, but also that they walk away learning. I'm kind of going in different areas, but I just think that it's key that we keep it enjoyable for the kids, both for parents and coaches.
Well, I think that's that right there is probably the biggest takeaway, for parents is the parents have the responsibility to make it enjoyable, and you're saying is, and what you show daily is that you are modeling that, right? Like it's, part of when I first started Train 2.0 and the videos was just like, okay, someone has asked me to make a video. I'm going to give the strictest, information possible. And if you guys, I've left all my old videos up on purpose because I want to show how crappy my old ones were. See, you know what, like, which is that, constant daily improvement and learn from your mistakes. And so now when I'm trying to do my videos, I'm now thinking in terms of like what would be enjoyable for people to watch, not just hey, what's the information I'm supposed to give out right now, but what's enjoyable for people to watch. How can I creatively, create that? And that's kind of what you did with Pavel Barber and that whole thing, because I watched the whole thing many times, and I'm just like, wow, like this is phenomenal to just watch, and it was just a really cool vantage point and perspective and a bunch of cool things that were going on. And it was like, how many times can they go through these cones and not mess up? Like they just keep going. But
Yeah.
like, so, and watching Rio, like before our meeting, you sent me a clip of him, and I'm going like, whoa, like this guy's already got the magic mechanics. He's got those mechanics as a stick handler, and what I see in hockey is kind of like imagining people at like the top of a one of those boards, where you can either go left or right, and you tumble down one path or you tumble down the other side. And it's like if someone picks up the hockey stick with the right grip and the right idea of the mechanics, then they go down the path on the right. And if they pick it up with the wrong grip and the wrong mechanics, they go down the path on the left. And Rio certainly has the magic mechanics. So like, was that on purpose? Was that something you taught him? Because most coaches don't teach this. The actual process come to be.
I'll start off saying this. You guys like your, Connor McDavid's or your Sidney Crosby's, or those guys are, I mean, they have some natural talent,
Mm-hmm.
right? Whether that be in their feet or in their hands or in their hockey IQ.
Mm-hmm.
And I get a lot of parents ask me. So every time I get off the ice with Rio, and the parents are kind of watching, and you can tell that their eyes are just bulging out, right? Like especially for his size. I mean he stands out because he's a small kid.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but what I'll tell you is, Rio does not have natural talent.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's nothing negative. It's just that he is, in my opinion, I think he's a very manufactured hockey player,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I say that in the best way possible,
Right.
because I think 90% of hockey players kind of fit into that, especially minor hockey, right?
Right.
So I mean, if you Google his videos from early on, when he first started, I mean, he couldn't skate, right?
Right.
I mean, he couldn't. Probably one of my most enjoyable moments, because you just kind of sit there and watch him. The puck goes one way, he starts to kind of follow, and by the time he gets into that motion, the puck's already gone the other way. Now he's got to turn around, and so it's just one of those things where you have to work at it, just like parents having to go to work and learn new skills. Like, you continuously have to work at it, and it's not by yelling and screaming and continuing to throw them on the ice, but working with some really great coaches. And he's been blessed with having some really, really great coaches that have really developed him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that, as a parent, you have to really kind of watch and really understand your kid,
Mm-hmm.
his potentials, his strengths, his weaknesses, and right. There's obviously a lot of things that Rio has to work on as well.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not shy about it. Like, we know that there's certain to develop on, and you have to, whether or not he's going to make it to the NHL is a different issue. That's just, but if he's continuing to develop, like, and I say that in the most honest way,
Mm-hmm.
not just having a guy do the same drills, and you hear this often too, I'm sure, that being hard is if they're sweating.
Right.
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 And it makes me laugh, right? It literally makes me laugh because, as a 6-year-old, if they're not sweating, they're not working, and
Right.
that's the old school way of thinking. So,
Right.
we really have to understand that, some kids need work on stick handling, some kids need work on foot skills, some kids need work on edge work, and so on, right? So, once you understand that, it's like some kind of a secret, like you that nobody really understands, that it's really about being honest about what your kid is really good at and what he's not good at.
Right. Right. Well, yeah. I mean, but a lot of parents don't really have
Right.
the knowledge or the time to make that evaluation, um, and so they struggle with that. And like, well, one of the like when I watch Rio stick handle, he has the magic mechanics of stick handling because he connects his hands to his feet. He has the right grip. Um, but I see a lot of players these days who are working very, very hard, but they don't have the right grip and they don't connect their hands to their feet. And as a result, they might spend as much time as Rio, but they don't have Rio's mechanics. So like, was there a coach that was like, here's what you do, or was that you, or like, because I mean that part, whether you pick up the stick with the right grip and that's natural for you, or you pick
Mm-hmm.
up the wrong grip, can dictate whether you have the magic mechanics or not, and irrespective of how much time you put in. So that's kind of what I was curious about with Rio.
Right, right. So it's a little bit of everything, right?
Right.
So, the one that really kind of made him understand is actually Daryl Belfry.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And and Daryl's been great. Like, he's, in real time, there's actually some instructions that he's provided to us via Twitter,
Mm-hmm.
on his stick handling skills. I don't know
Right.
if you've seen them, but uh, he's the whole concept around sliding out the back,
Mm-hmm.
right, was a good starting point where it made him realize, oh, this is how I stick handle.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you
So
think that
once you
forced the
understand,
grip? Do you think that forced the grip change, or
uh,
did he always have that grip?
no, he always had that grip, and
Interesting.
so yeah, so I mean, he's right-handed, right,
Mm-hmm.
and his hockey stick,
Mm-hmm.
and that's only because I was right-handed,
Right.
and those are the six I only had. But he is also right-hand dominant.
Right. Right.
So unlike many other players that are out there, um, he's actually opposite, right?
Right.
From a theory perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So he's definitely bottom hand dominant.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that's that's helped him, but it's also, it can hinder his stick handling a little bit if he doesn't focus on his top hand, which is, it only comes through practice. Uh, so it's a little bit of everything. So once you understand the theory, once you understand the secret
Mm-hmm.
of stick handling, then everything changes.
Right.
So, so what you're teaching around, magic mechanics is astronomically, advantageous for any hockey player to understand, because, if you keep like over and over again, you'll never get there.
Mm-hmm.
The whole concept around 10,000 hours is great, but if you're practicing 10,000 hours worth of wrong stuff, then it doesn't make you any better, right? And so, um, again, for parents, you really have to understand. Once you understand the secret, and the secret is all over the web, right? You
Right.
don't have to. You don't have to sit and think about, what is he doing wrong. I mean, you just Google it.
Right. Right.
That's the beauty of this whole thing,
Oh, certainly, certainly
right?
is, and um, like you say, like it is literally all over the web. Now that said, it's tough to see it if you've, because like I was talking to a player the other day who's, it's like hidden in plain sight, right? I was talking to a player the other day who's huge McDavid fan, has watched him for years, and then I say to him one thing. I said, notice how he's pushing with his heels. He goes, how in the hell did you pick that out, right? How the hell did you pick that out? Like, now that you tell me he's pushing with his heels when he crosses over, I've done it and I feel so much faster and I am so much faster. Wow, how the hell did you figure that out? Well, that's the 10,000 hours of watching the video, right? And that's what Belfry did. Like, I essentially, imitate before you innovate, and success leaves footprints. So if Belfry is the best coach in the world, so to speak, then, and he got his start by studying NHLers, translatable skills. Guess what I'm gonna do, right?
Yep.
And that is studying the video, and watching it again and again and again and again until you figure out and pick out what it is. So it's kind of like almost like another level of 10,000 hours that players can look for. So it's like you say, like, it is, the secret is out there. It's hidden in plain sight. But if you're willing to put in the time, anyone can learn anything nowadays with the amount of content that's out there. You don't have to wait. You don't have to cherish the one NHL game that you go to that year, right? You can just watch NHL on YouTube, nonstop, right?
Yeah, and you know what? I would say that the biggest advantage that we all have as hockey parents is what's in your pocket, which is your phone.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a camera,
Mm-hmm.
you have access to YouTube. That is the most powerful tool you've ever had years ago. We didn't have access to these tools. We didn't have access to record our kid
Mm-hmm.
on the ice as to what he's doing. Yeah, we might have camcorders and whatnot. Some parents did,
Those maybe
right?
worked.
Yeah, and they're very low resolution. You couldn't even see what was happening.
Right. And it
But
took 48 hours to process as well.
exactly, right. And I mean, but if you really think about it, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of parents that play golf or watch the Golf Channel,
Mm-hmm.
and look at those guys, right? Look at all the mechanics that are involved in a golf swing,
Mm-hmm.
and how much video analysis has been a part of that game.
Mm-hmm.
and look at all the, how 1 little millimeter grip changes everything. And it's the same for hockey, right? And so, there's certainly tools that you can just take to the ice, uh, and this the one thing that I think is a disservice, actually, from a development perspective, is that some trainers say, okay, don't videotape, right? Because they're afraid that someone's going to take that drill and use it elsewhere, and all of a sudden magically create a hockey school, which is not true.
No.
Um, and I, I mean, again, that's why I say the game is changing. Hockey instruction is changing. The way that we connect is changing, and so, once you have access to to record it and analyze it, sit down with your son or daughter and say, these are the things that we need to work on. And if the kid has the right mindset, then he'll learn. He'll sit there and watch 10,000 hours of his own skating and say, okay, well, this is what I got to work on. And I think the other part that I would say that where the game is changing is also in coaching, right? So if you watch guys like Mike Babcock on his interviews, he exemplifies the type of coaching that is making a team like the Maple Leafs very successful, which is let the kids make the mistakes. Let them learn from their mistakes. Don't bench them because they made a mistake, right? So, it's one of those things where, the kids will only learn mistake, right? And that's how they grow. So it's definitely something that, parents just need to pull it out, show them how they're, making that mistake, sit down with a coach that actually knows what they're talking about from a development perspective, and really get them to understand it. Kids love YouTube, right? They love watching these videos. They love watching not just the highlights, but even some of the instructional videos that you're doing now. Yeah, you had to pop these things into a VCR if you even had access to one, right? And then you're watching these grainy videos of how they're the guys that really know what they're talking about, right? And I think that the more you do it, the more educated you as a parent. And then you're on a level playing field with your kid and go, here's the things that we need to work on.
Well, like, that's I mean, you've kind of crafted the ideal learning environment with that video, because that's a huge component of Train 2.0, is that you can literally, like, it's going from 0 to 1 when you pull out the camera and video yourself, because it's not a 10x improvement, it's not a 100x improvement, because if you were never going to make that improvement until you saw the video, right, you can't, it's not a 10x thing, it's a 0 to 1 thing. And that's what you get every time you pull out the video camera and you show someone what they're doing. And kids crave video. I crave video as an athlete, because I want to know what I'm doing. And if it's skiing or tennis or shooting or whatever, but then it's also there's a ton of lessons to be pulled out of there. And so you also talked about, like, emotional support with you started talking about the mindset, right? And so I'm wondering how you kind of created that right mindset, because we all know the research behind fixed to encourage that growth mindset in Rio, because, like I said, when I chatted with him, I was incredibly impressed with how mature, and that's someone who could, and if a kid isn't open to improvement or doesn't have a growth mindset, him and I are not going to have that talk. But we did have that talk. So how did you go about encouraging that?
Yeah, so sports psychology is huge, right? Like, in terms of having that mindset. And as a parent, you only do what you know, which is, can try to motivate them as much as possible. Sometimes that doesn't work, right? And the kid can eventually go the other way, and start hating the sport, right? So, if you want to keep it fun, if you want them to enjoy it, you have to provide other resources, and just right. And it was actually a very good session just did for Rio was it allowed him to vent, right?
Interesting.
It allowed him to speak out about how he's feeling,
Mm-hmm.
whether it be during the game or practice or even off ice.
Mm-hmm.
And it gave him just an outlet. And I think that's also important is that, I mean, Rio's an only child, so he doesn't have, brothers and sisters, and we don't have cousins or that are living in Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he's probably in the worst kind of situation from being able to, talk his mind.
Mm-hmm.
So I seeked out a sports psychologist in Toronto, and she was great. I mean, her name is Dr. Kate Hayes,
Mm-hmm.
and she's someone that has been working with athletes as well. But she was a very kind of a motherly person, and she was great for him. And we only had to do just a few of them,
Right.
really, and it really gave him an outlet. Now he can clear his mind and really focus on what he wants. So, not every parent or kid has access to sports psychologist
Mm-hmm.
to provide access to resources that allows the kid to speak his mind,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like as a parent, like as adults, we all have to kind of speak our minds.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing that applies to your kid. There's no exception. And so, um, and so out of that, you kind of do a bit of a reset.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the mental game is just as important as the physical game. So, I mean, those are again, it's, you know, if it's the right thing, great. If it's not the right thing, then we change course. It's not like you're gonna, your life is at risk here, right?
Right.
So, um, if it's something that you think is worthwhile, then just like you pay a coach to do some on ice instruction, you also need to work on the off ice stuff too. And sports psychology, I mean, these guys are the experts,
Mm-hmm.
right, in terms of what happens in the mental state. So I would say seek it out, just try it, see if you like it. Make sure you get some referrals. Make sure that it's someone that your son or daughter can trust and speak to, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Well,
that's
I
what we
mean
did for.
that's um, certainly a huge part of it is the emotional support that a sports psychologist provides, and like you said, it really almost just gave Rio that outlet to vent to kind of some neutral third party, and that might be even the primary value for a player because that's what I find often is when I'm catching up with my one-on-one clients or whatever is I'm just I'm not just, but for the first part of the conversation at least, I'm the sounding board for kind of frustrations or challenges or whatever, and then we kind of refocus them in a powerful, useful frame, right? And so and not a lot of growing up, I didn't really have that. I had my parents. That was kind of tough, but I didn't have kind of like a hockey mentor, so to speak, or someone where I could go and share my feelings and thoughts and concerns. So that might be like a really good action point. And of course, you want that hockey mentor or coach or sports psychologist or whoever that is to have that mindset that you want modeled, like that growth mindset that you want modeled, because otherwise they're gonna just essentially model the crappy mindset, right? So it's kind of that might be a strategy. But my other observation is that your mindset is very open, very related, growth focused, and I'm sure Rio can't help but model that, right? Like your approach to going forward, and like you said, taking taking steps, and if it's not the right course, just adjusting course, which is a very kind of open, egoless mindset. And so, I mean, do you mind sharing what you're working on with Rio now? Like, what are the things that you're looking to what steps are you looking to make in the next little bit here?
Yeah, so this is really interesting because we're kind of entering a different phase now with this hockey career, right? So
Right.
he's now 12 years old, going into minor Bantam. He's got, he's got body contact that's now going to be coming in. So things like concussions start to really, take center stage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Having said that, that doesn't, I mean, there's obviously concussions that happen, when there's no body contact.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of things to kind of keep in mind. This to me, I call this kind of phase two, right,
Mm-hmm.
of a hockey career. So phase one
Well,
is
yeah,
is
I was gonna ask what was phase one.
so phase one is basically from from when he starts to when he's kind of in that major peewee,
Right. Okay.
right,
What dictates
where
the phase?
it's a
Like,
I think a lot has to do with his the change in his physique,
okay.
right, as they grow.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the best shifty hockey players that I playing,
Mm-hmm.
and he's small, but he's growing now. But we're looking at videos from two when his shiftiness was very there, like it was very much there,
Right.
and that's going to grow. I think at any that's that change in phases. So that when you have your short stumpy legs, you can do a lot of things, but as they age your muscles a little bit more at around the 12, 13, 14 age.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're going to go the puberty phase as well. So your game starts to change, right? So and you start to work on your fine tuning as opposed to some massive changes, right?
Right.
Um, so that's kind of what I'm referring to from a transition from that phase one, which is work on the big stuff, work on the shooting, work on the passing, work on the skating, work on the edge work, to now fine tuning it so it's more game situational awareness, breaking your training down to defensive zone, neutral zone, offensive zone, and then you can really get into breaking that down into, okay, well, you're in the offensive zone on the right side, what do you do? You're on the offensive zone left side, what do you do? Right? So more tuning moments as opposed to the big blocks.
Right. Right. I like that. It
So
makes a lot of sense. It's the Takano development model. Are we gonna patent that?
I guess, yeah, I never even thought about that.
Let's compete with the long-term athlete development model. Let's do the Takano development model.
Yeah, but you know what? To your point, I think it's just one of those things you as a parent you have to kind of work backwards, right? The I know there's a lot of other parents that when the kid's like 8 years old,
Mm-hmm.
they want to be taught by a guy that was playing in the NHL.
Right.
Well, you can't teach the same skills to an 8-year-old that you would teach to a 14-year-old,
Right. Right.
right?
Right.
So I'd caution parents that you got to really know your kid. Don't just go because the guy played in the NHL. It's just the
Right.
experience. You can translate that into, right. One of my life coaches and skills coaches is a guy.
Hey Satoshi, the connection's kind of going a
A
little.
lot of the NHL guys
Can you hear me all right?
know.
Hello? Hello? Oh, sorry guys. Sorry about that. I'm gonna.
Hello,
Hello, can you hear me all right?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it was kind of cutting out there for a little bit, so I guess that's where the editing would normally come in and fix that. But sorry, yeah, we probably missed, I don't know, maybe about the last 30 seconds or so. Are you hello? Let's it seems
Hello.
like Satoshi. Oh, are you there?
Can you
Oh,
hear me?
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Hello?
Hello, I can hear
Hello?
you. Can people not hear me? Maybe he can't hear me. Hello? Well, maybe we need to reconnect here. Um,
Okay.
oh, I can hear you now. Well, let's I'm gonna try reconnecting here. Let's check out some of the questions that people have for Satoshi. We're gonna try reconnecting, and so we got a couple questions here. If anybody, and what are some of the? See if we can get this to work here. And the second question is, what's the type of things, qualities? Let's see if we can get this. Call back online. Think of Satoshi so far. He's a very intelligent, very thoughtful dad, as you guys can see. Well, technology is not with us today, I don't think. Try one more thing here. So if you guys haven't had a chance to see the Rocket Rio's stick handling, I've placed the link in the description here, so you guys can listen to the. You guys can watch that on iTunes, maybe while you're waiting here. Apologies for that, for the buffering. It appears that after a certain time, the network. Oh, here we go. Hopefully we can make this work. The network just taps out. It's had enough. That's what it appears like. So we're. Hey, I can hear you.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Sorry, something's wrong with my connection here.
It could have been the connection here as well, so who knows. But we were talking about. I guess that's the afterwards, but we'll get there. Fail forward, right? Like that's kind of
That's right.
that's the idea. So we were talking about phases. We were talking about how phase one is like the big stuff, the big, you know, quantum shifts, quantum leaps, and
Yep.
phase two is the fine tuning. You're hitting puberty, so now, you know, you should have kind of most of the skills dialed in. Is there a phase three? What's phase three?
Phase three is kind of the. I mean, it's. I would say the phase two is a fairly short phase. Phase three is really kind of the slash college hockey or university or any of those types of fairly competitive high level competitive situations.
Uh-huh.
So I think that's the phase 3, and then the phase um, is something that a lot of parents, don't want to face, which is what happens if they don't make it,
Right.
right? Or that after, the life, what's the life after hockey? I think that's really the phase 4,
Right.
right? Um, and for some players that comes, sooner than later.
Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely, if you don't keep that on the radar, um, you can set, so that's something that I would kind of say is the phase 4,
Phase
right? And then
4.
phase 5 is really just beer league hockey, right?
Phase 5 is barely hockey. You've successfully transitioned out of phase 4.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I like that approach because I was kind of running the numbers. We was talking with my girlfriend, and we were talking about like, okay, let's say you're an NHLer, and let's say you make, I don't know, let's say you have a like the median career is probably, I don't know, two seasons in the NHL, right? That's probably, is that, would you agree with that? Like 2-3 seasons is like the median career.
I saw some statistic, and I'm actually working on something right now. But I saw some statistic that said that the average career length is 5 years.
Okay. Well, average then is, but that's going to be like pulled the, towards the longer side with someone like a Yager, right? So I'd say
Right, right,
the
right.
median would be like probably the more like prevalent, um, you know, way to. Anyway, I'm splitting hairs here, but let's say it's between 3 and 5 years. It's kind of like your median or average. Um, Career, and let's say like you've spent a whole bunch of your years trying to get there, and you get there and you do 3 to 5 years, maybe you're doing a few $1,000,000, right? You cut out 30% to tax depending where you're living. um, now you gotta live the NHL lifestyle for a few years. Then you gotta um, fund your nice vehicle um, and multiple suits, and then you're a rookie, so you got to buy everyone steak dinner. And by the end of it, you're kind of not left with like much of a nest egg. It's kind of the outliers, the guys who are in the first two lines and have 10, 20-year careers that are living the life and doing okay. But most NHLers, like probably, I don't know, 90%, other than hockey, to have been so nerdy and obsessed with hockey itself that I could then transition that to coaching.
Right.
And if Rio is building up a social network and following, right, then he can be leveraging that brand into his phase 4,
Yeah.
because your network is your net worth, right?
Yep. Yep.
So I mean, it seems like a lot of people don't want to think. As I like thinking of it in that way, because if a lot of people think to phase 3 and then that's where it ends, right? They're not
Yeah.
planning how could phases 1 through 3 also um, do phase 4. That's why I say, if phase 3 is your phase 3 and your goal is the NHL, then like go full tilt for the NHL. But then also realize that you got phase 4 coming up after that. How can you use that, straight shot at the NHL to then
Yeah.
have a good phase 4?
I totally agree with you. So, I played pretty competitive as well in my lifetime, and I never thought that I was going to go to the NHL. I mean, that was very clear for me. But after when my career was over, I still kept in touch with a lot of the guys that I played with,
Mm-hmm.
and even my coaches, and so I think that those are the important things. Those are life lessons, right? Regardless of whether you play hockey or tennis or any other sport, it's that you're using it to connect with different people. And what I'm seeing in the social media space, which is really interesting, right? So um, uh, as soon as that YouTube video went up, people take two directions,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that is, they're either in support of you.
Mm-hmm.
When you start to see the comments and such, some of them are like, great, that's awesome. And oddly enough, I mean, it's sad to say this, but there some of the people that have made comments are actually his teammates,
Really? Hey.
right? And it's a sad state, but um, you kind of have to recognize it and then just keep going,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's what I talk about, the good side and the dark side. But it comes with the territory, right? And I'm sure you as a content creator, same thing, right? There's people that are always in support, and then there's always one of you that kind of take a different glass half empty approach.
Right. Well, that's
But
kind of
but
like
that's just,
what. Sorry. I cut you off there. Go ahead.
no, it's okay. Go ahead.
Oh no, I just like I think with that whole teammate thing, and like if we want to talk about like phases and phase shifts, it's like if a teammate, this is like one of the strange things. Whenever I see a player go like change towns, or change teams, it kind of like gives this opening for that player to recreate themselves, right? And because there's no like attachment to where you once were. Hockey is strangely, not strangely, it's pretty predictable at this point, but hockey itself, the culture, is pretty fixed, right? Like, no one really likes the idea of you going underneath the hood of your own mental wiring, rewiring yourself, and coming up with better skills, right? Like, um, they don't, and especially if they're not doing that at the same time, right? You find these
Right.
little pockets where people are supportive of that in hockey, and it's open, they're sharing. But most of the time, a teammate wants to see you where you are, and they don't really want to see you, all of a sudden jump above them or make a shift. So it's kind of like it's almost like yeah, like the peer group, your high school, or going nowhere, they want to drag you down, but then you meet some new friends in the city, and they want to bring you up, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of
Yeah, yeah.
the
Well,
thing that goes on in hockey.
I find it really interesting. I don't know if it's and especially with the AAA loop in
Mm-hmm.
Toronto,
Mm-hmm.
everybody knows everybody,
Right.
right? Every player, even if they're on the other team, they all have a mutual level of respect,
Right.
right? And you can see it because you could just stand out in front of the dressing room of these AAA games, and as they're coming out, they're high fiving each other. They're saying, "Hey, good game."
Mm-hmm.
They're giving them a pat on the back, or they're joking with each other. So even though they're competitors, during the game,
Mm-hmm.
off the ice, they're all friends,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, and there's in a double A loop, it's very similar, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I would say that more often than not, just because they play on a different team, they don't even talk to each other. They don't even acknowledge each other. They hate each other,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the old school of way of competing, which
Right.
is you you fight with them and you say you hate them, and that might make your game better. That's not necessarily true. And in fact, if you watch a lot of the NHL guys, in the off season,
Mm-hmm.
right, they're all friends. They all
Right.
golf together. They all
Right.
play together. They go to barbecues together. Like, so it's a I don't know where it comes from, but when they're playing at a high level,
Mm-hmm.
it's expected that support each other, right? And
Yeah.
I notice anyway in
Well,
Toronto.
that's I don't know if it's a Toronto thing. I wonder if it's like, okay. So here's an observation I had. Um, or like a couple. I'll string them together here. First is I've dealt with junior trainers. Like some of them will have ego involved, right? And if you threaten them, I'm not standing over them, but if you threaten their feeling of power, or you threaten their feeling of being correct, or whatever, their ego goes, their ego shield goes whoop, right up, and then they'll just start just hammering down on you, and taking whatever power trip approach they can to um, just utilize their power. And so they can be these really notoriously difficult people to work with, and this happens at I've seen it kind of like the midget level, the junior level, um, not a ton at the college level, but it's there. But then I remember going to the Canucks practice. I was called up to practice with them at Rogers, and just meeting literally every single person in the dressing room. From the moment I got there to the moment I left, was extremely friendly, completely open, shook my hand, introduced themselves, and it was this level of egolessness and complete professionalism that I was just in awe of, because that doesn't really exist. Like you said, there's kind of, and sorry, now going back to the whole, they're the enemy kind of thing. When I was growing up, I was from a smaller town, and kind of in that double A level, and there was almost this there was this jealousy, there was this hatred, so to speak, of the other team, and you couldn't be friends. You had to, stick true to your tribe, and and not, cavort with the enemy, right? Like, whereas when you get to that next level, and it's like it's almost like everyone knows, hey, we're all here, we're all in this literally in this battle arena together, and there's like this common respects, and like you said, you see in the NHL, you see these NHLers that are joking with each other, but also competing as hard as possible, and that's like more of that innovative, open mindset, that where you're encouraging successes, but then also competing really, really hard at the same time. So I don't think it's a Toronto thing. It's almost more of like an elite thing, or like a high-end thing. I don't know if that rings true at all, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think so. But until you see it happening, like especially at an NHL level, like we had an opportunity to go see a lot of the NHL guys practice during the off season,
Mm-hmm.
especially last year,
Mm-hmm.
and they're all wearing their uniforms and pants and gloves, so you know exactly where they're from, but
Right.
they're all friends.
Right.
And in fact, the one video that I showed to some of my kids that I train is. I think it was it was like a fight between two players
Mm-hmm.
at a recent game, and they were both one of them was mic'd up,
Right.
right? So you can hear what they're saying,
Right.
and it's they go, hey, do you want to go? And they go, yeah, and then they start punching each other, and then after a while they got really, really tired,
Yeah.
right? And then so once they're done, to each other they say, hey, hey, good job, buddy, good job, right? And then they're sitting in the penalty box and still mic'd up, and there's no glass between the two players.
Yeah.
And you hear the one player saying, hey, we got to work on our cardio this off season, eh? and he goes, oh, we got to work with this guy over here. He goes, no, that guy doesn't know cardio. We got to work with someone else. And then at the very end, they say, hey, good luck for the rest of the season, buddy. And that's it. And these are the two guys that were just 30 seconds ago were punching each other.
Right.
And then they're in the box and they're chatting each other up as if they're friends.
Right. That's like kayfabe, right? Like I think I'm saying that pronounced correctly. It is a Japanese word, so that do you know what I mean by that? The fake reality of staged pro wrestling.
Yeah.
What it's like, right? And so it's like it's almost like the people at that maybe like you say the AAA circuit or maybe the NHL circuit, they have this awareness of kayfabe, right? The staged competition, whereas the people at the lower level, they have a lot of emotion and angst and anxiety, and success or failures feels very real instead of impermanent.
Right.
I don't know. That's kind of how it seems to me, because I see, the people a little bit on the outside are very, emotional. Like, not. I mean, I'm generalizing here, but the success or failure is very emotional. But once you make it up into that circuit, everyone knows each other. There's that common respect. So I wonder if it's like correlation causation, or I wonder what direction that arrow goes. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that you see this, right? I mean, you got parents hating each other and kids hating each other, and what you have to realize at some point, that player that you hated might eventually be on your line the next season.
Right.
right? And I had that growing up. I had a player that I just hated growing up,
Right.
and you could never get the puck off him because he was so good and you
Right.
hated the guy,
Right.
right? And then the following season, the guy was on my line,
Hmm.
right? And then all of a sudden you become best of friends, and it's
Right.
like, how the hell did that happen, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's some really interesting things that can happen because of the sport, and so, um, I think you always kind of have to look at it in a good light. That eventually these guys are all going to be in beer league hockey. That you may even work together one day in
Yeah.
some company.
Yeah.
So it's there's really, there's no downsides to it, right?
Right.
So um, if they're having, and that's why I always come back. If as long as your son or daughter is enjoying what they're doing,
Hmm.
then keep them there,
Hmm.
right? And and it's our obligation to make sure that they're in a good environment, or that you're also setting a being a good role model for to have a discussion, right, about uh, what it is that they want, right?
That's a really good, like, I know I already brought attention to this, but it's like the focus, right? You can only focus on one thing at a time. You can't anti-focus. But a lot of parents I see are focused on, not upsetting this person, or ensuring their kid isn't upset, or ensuring that, they're not spending too much money, or they're not, losing this opportunity. All these things they're worried about, and if the metric is, or the focus is instead fun, how do you maximize fun? Pretty, like, everything else kind of follows from that, really. Like, if you're maximizing the amount of fun you have, then you're going to want to have a complete mastery of the sport. So you're going to want to have a mastery of skill. And if you want to maximize fun, you want to maximize opportunities. And if that's your main metric, is fun in hockey, a lot of things are going to follow from it, which are going to essentially lead to um, success. So I think that's really cool that you've done that. So, like, how, so in the whole fun thing, I mean, does connecting with other kids, like, how can parents, how can you as a parent encourage that connection with other kids? Does that factor in at all, like, for the fun side?
Yeah, for sure. I think if uh, in our case, whether he has a good game or a bad game, we always try to mix him up with different players. He's on the ice a lot with different coaches, and sure enough, this one kid is always there. It doesn't matter which hockey school you go to or which instructor you go to; they're always there. They play for a different team, but you go up and you can see them talking to each other, and that's what I always like to do. Every time, even during the on season, or in season, if you want to call it, I try to take him to as different trainers as much as possible,
Mm-hmm.
um, because we see other kids there,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then they're eventually talking to each other. They might go to school together,
Mm-hmm.
and you just never know where the next opportunity is going to come. So, just relegating to just the team practice or the game doesn't really help to expand their minds
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
in terms of what's available. To have access to different trainers that get ice, and then you can bring your kid to, and at a very nominal cost, right? Like, we're not talking hundreds of dollars. It's like some $30 to $40 for a session,
Mm-hmm.
and most kids are there. So
Mm-hmm.
I would say get them exposed to as many kids as possible within your loop,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, and coaches would recognize them. Uh, a lot of the other kids would go, hey, it's Rocket Rio, or hey, Rio's here, and I mean, other kids light up, right? And if I see that, then it's a sign that we're doing something good.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's not to say that every parent all of a sudden needs to go and put their kids on online. I think it's it's something that you have to consciously be prepared for the goods and the bad.
Right.
So, um, so I always have to coach him that, yes, you're going to get haters. You're going to get people that are jealous. You're going to get people that are going to say a whole bunch of stuff. But you have to make sure to help educate them, and knowing that, those will always exist, right? That
Mm-hmm.
always take the high road, to always be smiling, to always be, helpful, and, just core values of just being a good person generally, right?
Right.
So I would certainly, you know, uh, try to get parents as much as possible to play with other kids, and show up at a hockey school, or whatever, and just have them engage, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, like, and then going back to kind of like the social media side of it too, is an interesting perspective from a company that I did a bit of work with, um, which is called Loof Live, and they essentially help athletes leverage their brand to get opportunities. And one of the things that is real nowadays is if you have 10,000 followers on Instagram or 30,000, whatever your number is, that is a monetizable asset, right? And so if a
Yes.
junior team is thinking of drafting one player over another, maybe you might get some old fashioned manager who goes, "Oh, this guy's an Instagram star," uh, but probably what's going to happen now is people are going to kind of say, interesting. This athlete has a brand. They have 100,000 people um, on their Instagram. What happens if we draft him and play him? I'm thinking that way down the line. Like you have, I don't think many people are thinking that way, right? But if they are, you know, to a professional or junior team that's struggling to make some dollars and want some free uh, brand advertisement, that's a way to do it, right?
Yep, yep. No, I agree. There's some smart brands that are out there that are leveraging, these types of influencers, right?
Right.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with it. And in fact, if you own a business in the hockey space, or whatever the genre that you have, and if there is somebody that is, influencing people to buy a product, then there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, that's called endorsements, right? Like in a professional realm. So whether you're a Michael Jordan, or another player that just happens to have a lot of influence on, then that just comes with the territory. Again, these are things that, as parents, like, you have to be well prepared for. And that's not our goal, right? I mean, our goal is to not be some brand ambassador like that. That's not what I mean,
Right.
because we still have a job to do, which is helping him develop as a hockey player. I don't want to mix up business with his sport that he does to that he does every day.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, at some point that will come. Again, that I think is, again, the phase 3, phase 4, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, um, so you definitely have to be prepared to have those business conversations, and I think that this comes with the territory.
Well, certainly. I mean, I mean, that's just. I mean, it's just a skill. It's not. It's a
Yeah.
skill that you're yet another skill that you're arming Rio with. This guy is gonna be
Yeah,
skilled
yeah, for
up.
sure.
He's gonna be skilled up.
Yep. I mean, the one thing that I think is interesting is, because now that, he's somewhat known in the hockey space. The beauty of it is, these kids come to him and say, "Hey, Rio, can you teach me a few things, or
Yeah.
can you, come out to a skate with us?" And um, and that years, with his age and skill level,
Mm-hmm.
that it it's connecting people, right? So I love the interaction that these little kids have, and they look up to him and they're like, wow, hey, can you show me, how do you stick handle? And so it's an opportunity for him to give back to the sport, which is also one of the things that I'm teaching him a lot is, hey, you at some point you're going to have to give back to the community, and teach some of the things that other people taught you, right? So I think it's one of those things that it's a responsibility and an accountability thing, right? And don't let things get to your head, and be very humble about any of those types of opportunities. So again, these are all just basic life lessons, right? And hockey is just a vehicle, that's. I mean, I don't. I mean, great if he can make it further with his career. But if not, there's always a plan B, and that plan B is, giving back to the community, leveraging your network of people that you've built, friendships with, because you just never know. You just never know,
Well, a
right?
very progressive outlook on guiding a career and creating a path for your kid. Is there any what like
Yeah, for sure.
what was your 80/20 focus with Rio? Or was there one?
So, yeah, so 80/20 for me, the 20% is the real key areas, which tend to get overshadowed by other skills, which is working on your skating, your edge work, and your hands,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I would group those two together as part of my 20%. Um, and the rest is the comes with it, right? So um, the most important thing for me, especially because of his size, is always to work on your skating as much as possible. I've seen NHL players, I've seen prospects, I've seen some of the drafts that are going into the league, and the basic mechanics of skating had never been developed.
Mm-hmm.
It was just an assumption,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they might have been drafted because of their size,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that being the major criteria.
Mm-hmm.
But they couldn't skate. I mean, the game has changed so much so that it's so important to work on your east west, what I call east west skills, right? Your side to side, your agility, your edge work, um, the shootings and passing, and they'll come. I mean, if you see Rio, um, I mean his I mean, I'm not saying this to be biased. The table, right? The skating will always get you to the table,
Mm-hmm.
or the dance floor, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
The rest is all the other fine tuning, hockey IQ and shooting and all that, right?
Right.
So that's how I kind of see it. If you're good with your hands, if you know exactly what to do, if you're great with your skating and your edge work, and that will get you you know to the dance floor, right? The
Right.
rest is up to you, right?
Right. 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 Very cool. So you've got you're on Instagram, you're on Facebook. Rio's on Instagram as well, I believe. So where can
Yep.
people find you? Where can people follow you to kind of keep up with the journey?
So I definitely want people to follow the journey, because I think it's something that is very I'm hoping to kind of teach people through this process, right? So I'm on SA Takano, Satttakano,
Okay.
um, and Rio is Rio T Takano. Um, his middle name is Tyler. Actually, he doesn't have a middle name. It's actually a hyphenated name. The videos that we see on, and I'm if anyone messages me on Instagram, I always reply, because I don't care how old you are and what skill level you are. I always make sure that you have access to the same resources and tools that I had,
Right.
right? And so I'll always reply back. So
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I'll put those handles in the links or in the description of the YouTube thing. And wow, you've been very generous with We're almost up on 2 hours here.
Wow,
And
really?
yeah, it always flies. So I want to thank you for coming on and sharing your wisdom and the journey. And I really just think it's a very progressive, modern, rational, thoughtful approach to creating a path for your child. And I think, and that was really what I got when you and I met was, I think like, wow, not a lot of other parents think this way. A lot of parents are behind chasing, Satoshi and Rio are ahead leading, and that's why I was really excited to share you and your approach with my audience. So thanks very much for coming on.
Hey, anytime, man. This is a great opportunity, and any help I can provide, I'm happy to.
Great. And so for those who are watching on YouTube right now, you can also download this full episode, and the link is in the description. So thank you guys very much for watching. Yee.